In this module, we'll be looking at the first of the types, and that is the generator type. Specifically, we'll be going over a brief history of the generator aura, the characteristics of generators. We'll go over some of their gifts and challenges, and I'll also be giving some health and sleep recommendations, and last but not least, their signature and not self themes. So, to give the story behind the generator type, it's been said that generators are and have been known to be the great builders of civilization. This is the role and purpose that they play within humanity. And actually, most of the things that you see around you have been built by generators. The things that have been built by man were constructed by generators. And because of their energy and endurance, they were considered to be extremely valuable by the people who ruled at the time. So, in other words, those manifestors. And generators pretty much had to surrender to these manifestor leaders because they weren't able to compete or impact in the same way as manifestors could when they, tried to imitate the manifestor ways of taking control. So they were pretty much enslaved and controlled to be these builders of the manifestor empires. Of course, now, we're at a time where generators are no longer being physically enslaved and they're free to lean into their role as a great builder to create what they love and also to use their abundant energy to explore what they're capable of without being oppressed and forced into things that they don't want to do. So, now that you have a brief history of generators and their roles within humanity, let's get into the general characteristics of the generator aura. Generators are known as the great builders, and they're here to respond to life and build what they love. So, their strategy is to respond, which is all about responding to what life brings them, right? Whether it's questions or signs or synchronicities, rather than constantly searching for that next thing and just initiating from this place of fear and scarcity. And when life does bring them something to respond to, it's about tuning to their sacral response to discern what's in alignment. And we'll talk about the sacral response when we dive into strategy later. But when they respond to the right things, this is when they gain access to this impressive sustainable energy and endurance and have this incredible ability to work long hours when they're immersed in the right things for them, right? They're truly one of the types that are designed to do the work and be in the thick of the action. And of course, not just any work, right? It's not just about being this worker bee, it's about finding the right work for them that provides them with this deep sense of satisfaction. Their aura is described as open and enveloping because of their abundant life force and the magnetic and receptive nature of their auras, which are designed to draw in people and opportunities and things into their auric field. And it literally embraces and envelops them so they can just respond to these things, right? It's just a warm and vibrant energy that draws you in. And this is what they're here to share with others when it's correct for them. And their gift is that they have this capacity for mastery of skills over time because of their endurance and their commitment to their work. So here is live footage of a generator doing the work. Just kidding. This is Rihanna. And I'm sure most of you have heard of the song before. But, anyways, generators are here to do the right work. So I just wanted to emphasize that. So when you look at a body graph, the defining characteristic that makes a generator and what creates their open and enveloping aura is that they have a sacral center defined, right? So you'll see that red square right in the middle with the arrow pointing to it that says defined sacral. And all generator types have a defined sacral center. This defined sacral center, as you'll learn, is what gives them access to this abundant and sustainable life force energy. And in this particular case, for pure generators, they do not have what we call a motor center connected by a defined channel to the throat center, right? So this is the second characteristic. There is no motor to throat connection. And a motor center, just to kind of give you an idea of what that is, a motor center is an energy center that creates energy that moves life forward. And there are four different motor centers. We have the heart center, the solar plexus, the root center, or the sacral. And you'll notice that for generator types, that none of these are connected to the throat center by a defined channel. Just a side note, a generator can still have a defined throat, but it will just not be connected to any of these four motors. So basically where you see those arrows pointing, right? You might have it maybe connected by a defined channel to the ajna center, right? But there's no motor there. So that's what differentiates a pure generator from, let's say, a manifesting generator, right? The core challenge that generators face is using their energy inefficiently and getting caught up in things that just don't light them up, right? So for example, many generators are conditioned to be like manifestors and end up constantly initiating in order to make things happen. And when they try to be manifestors rather than wait and listen to their sacral response to, guide them and tell them what's actually in alignment to them, they end up, doing all these things and initiating things that are either not effective or not in alignment to them, which leads them to getting stuck and frustrated or leads them to wanting to quit too soon. There's also this common fear between generators that nothing will happen for them if they're not doing anything, which results in them just using their energy inefficiently and doing all the things and finding themselves busy but unproductive and unfulfilled and frustrated. There's also this tendency to live from the shoulds. So, for example, many generators have this attachment to visions of how they think life should look like, that come from desires and fantasies from their conditioning, or even come as a reaction from fear, or even a reaction for a comparison, or, this is probably something that might be coming from someone else. And all of this can result in more resistance and frustration because it's not actually in alignment or correct for them. On the other hand, many generators may also be taken advantage of for their energy. So it's important for them to discern what's correct for them or when it's correct for them to help others. And also to be able to set appropriate boundaries is a lesson that they need to learn. You might come across a lot of generators or MGs who say, I don't resonate with my type. I feel like I don't have consistent access to energy. And, sometimes they might even just express that they're stuck and frustrated. And most of the time, maybe 95% of the time that you encounter this situation, it's because their energy is tied up in things that don't light them up. It's blocked. It's tied up in doing all of these things that are not in alignment to their sacral response. In other words, they're living from the shoulds, or they're not waiting to respond before engaging in things, or they're not setting boundaries with people who are taking advantage of their energy. So you really want to help generators around you get in touch with their sacral response. So the key to overcoming all of these challenges is to lean into their strategy and authority to guide them in discerning what to engage in and when. In other words, waiting to respond to what shows up and attuning and listening to their sacral gut response to discern what and when to initiate and engage in, and who to serve or set boundaries with so that they feel their best and reserve their energy as much as possible for the things that do light them up. When it comes to getting good sleep and feeling well rested and refreshed and, feeling their best the next day, it's really important for generators to use up their sacral resources, use up their sacral energy before going to sleep. If you're a generator and you're not sleeping well, or if you have a generator child and they're not sleeping well, or they're just miserable in the morning, it can often be because they're not using up their sacral resources before going to bed. And it's by going to bed exhausted that they'll feel the best the next day. So this can look like doing work or exercise beforehand. It might even look like studying or reading, or, if you have a child, signing them up for extracurriculars, if you have that, that privilege to do so. But anyways, it's all about just being able to use up your sacral resources. This is what's going to be the key to getting a good night's rest. And of course, each type has unique signals for whether or not they're living in alignment. So when you're out of alignment, you might experience what we call the not self theme of your type. And when you're in alignment, this is when you experience what we call your signature theme. So for generators, the not self theme is frustration and their signature theme is satisfaction. So when a generator begins to experience this chronic theme of frustration, it's usually a signpost from the universe, from your intuition, from the universe. I think I said that already, but that basically there's something that might not be in alignment and that there's something that needs to be looked at a bit more closely or changed, right? Just as an example, a generator can experience this theme of frustration when they're acting out of their conditioning and constantly initiating out of a place of fear and scarcity in their relationships, career, and business. And everything that they initiate just leads them to this place of feeling stuck and not being anywhere closer to where they want to be, not feeling that sense of satisfaction. Another example that where generators can feel this theme of frustration is when they're forcing themselves to do work that they hate, right? It's soul sucking work, but maybe they chose this to stay. Maybe they chose to stay in a job because it gives them a sense of safety and security. And when a generator faces this frustration, like I mentioned, it's an opportunity to take a closer look, to take a step back and practice your strategy and authority. So, waiting to respond to something in your external environment before immediately acting on something. And then checking in with your authority to make sure it's aligned and correct for you. We're going to discuss strategy and authority in more detail in the later modules, but just kind of wanted to give you an idea of how that not self theme and where it might be experienced. So, moving on to the signature theme, right? The signature theme is satisfaction. And when a generator begins to learn to surrender to the flow of life and move away from the resistance that's created from the not self, then they experience this theme of satisfaction as a norm in their life, right? And nothing is more rewarding than a sense of satisfaction in their work and relationships.